Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I am your host, Matthew Jarvis, and with me today, a special guest, a Bryan Sweet, who has in his own version been running what we could call a perfect RIA for decades. In fact, Bryan had a perfect practice before. I don't want to date Bryan, but well before I was on the scene, Bryan was already running this hyper efficient, highly profitable lifestyle practice, delivering massive value. So, Bryan, in many ways, you were sort of the godfather of this before it was even a thing. So welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Very good. Well, you and I, even though we do a lot of similar work and we both do a lot of work in the industry, we only crossed paths for the first time just a few weeks ago at Joe Polish's Genius Network. And here we are today recording an episode together.
Yeah, it was fun to run into you. I've been meaning to touch base with you somehow and fortunate to get to run across you. And here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Well, Bryan, tell our listeners a little bit about your story. You've been in the industry many years. You've accomplished a lot of things. So we could probably do 10 episodes on this. But give us a little teaser about what you've been up to.
Well, I am one of those old timers, if you will, in the industry. This is my 43rd year, soon coming up on 44 years. So I like to say I started when I was 6 years old, but
that's right.
Yeah. So anyway, I've been very fortunate to have been in this industry for a long time. I had lots of great mentors over the years. And one of the things that, kind of happens, just as you're well aware, you like to give back to the people that have helped you, or you've been helped and you want to pass that along. So as you with your podcast, we've done several things in addition to running our RIA to help other advisors get to levels that we're at and try to make their practices more efficient and effective.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I was really excited to have you on the show. Is I'm such a fan and such an advocate of advisors teaching other advisors, right? It's so difficult to succeed, I think, in this industry, especially if you're taking advice from other sources, right? The ability to learn. I mean, I learned so much from Nick Murray, right? I mean, Nick Murray was like the early days of my learning. To hear what he was saying in client meetings and how he was handling the financial crisis, that helped me get through. So talk to us a little bit about the program you've created, the Elite Wealth Advisory Symposium. Tell us how that works and what your goals are there.
Yeah, that's a program that we started, I suppose, 5 or 6 years ago. And there's my partner in that is Randy Carver. Randy is at Raymond James, the top advisor at Raymond James. And him and I would be going to these meetings, Barron's, Forbes, the Raymond James Chairman's Council retreats, et cetera. And what we were finding is that at those meetings, maybe a third or a half of the content was actually applicable to us and how we wanted to run the practice in the future. So we'd look at each other and go, yeah, maybe we should just do something on our own. And, time would pass and we'd see each other next year at the same event and go, gee, this thing isn't really, delivering. And so we did that a number of times. And then finally, we just said, well, why don't we create something that we feel would help deliver the magnitude for very high-end advisors at the top of their game would love to have that experience. And so the Elite Wealth Advisor Symposium, or the nickname EWAS, was created, and it's just been a really fun thing to build on as we've been doing this the last 5-6 years.
So how does the format work from that? So I see I'm on your website, right? So I see it's a 2-day event, but kind of who's speaking, who's there, how big is it? Tell us a little bit more about the event.
Yeah, so Randy and I had a couple of requirements or thoughts on how we could make this a really good event. So the first one is we wanted to keep it relatively small. So it's an invitation-only event. So we invite 100 of advisors. And some of them are referrals, but most of the people that get invited are people that we know or know of. And then one of the things that we've been doing recently is also inviting each advisor that comes can also invite their implementer. And one of the things that I've seen over 43 years of doing this is you go to these meetings, get amazing, great ideas. You go back to the office, you get caught in the whirlwind, and the things that you wanted to get done from that meeting never get done. And part of that is the person that actually is going to do them for you didn't hear the idea. They don't know what you're talking about. And so bringing an implementer has just been, at least in my practice, a huge thing. And so we're just trying to get other people to kind of think a little bit out of the box and get more things out of the time that they spend in meetings like this.
Boy, that's a great idea. I know I've certainly been guilty of bringing back just sort of like a rumor of an idea. Hey, I met this guy Bryan, and he's doing this thing in his practice, and it sounds great. Let's start it tomorrow. And so for them to hear it from the source, to be able to be there in the meetings, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's like I said, it's been very helpful for us, and we haven't got everybody to participate yet. But the more we do it, the more we offer that, the more people that are bringing their implementers along.
So then, are the sessions predominantly you and Randy sharing best practices from your respective practices?
Actually, no. Randy and I both speak, but we're a very small part of it. One of the things that we have done is we try to bring in speakers that aren't what you would call typical financial practice speakers. And as you alluded to before, you and I were just at an event called Genius Network, and I'm also part of other masterminds. And so I get to meet some incredible people from around the country in all sorts of industries. And one of the things that I love to do is bring those thoughts and ideas, because what I have found and what's been really successful is taking ideas from other industries and say, how can I apply that to what I do? One, it differentiates you, but two, it also is very helpful to the client. So trying to bring outside speakers that may not be, common names in the industry has been really kind of one of our little secrets, I guess.
Well, that's a lot of fun. Of course, as an event organizer, right, you get to cherry pick those. And so it's a great opportunity. I was recently at Dave Ramsey's Leadership Summit with one of my team members, and sort of realized that Dave just invited whoever it was he wanted to meet in the world. That was who the guest speaker was. I think it was less about, and they were all great people to have, but it was kind of his like, I want to meet President Bush. I guess he's our guest speaker. I want to meet Malcolm Gladwell. He's our guest speaker. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting way of looking at it, and to a certain extent, that's really true.
For sure, it is. Well, so you've got your symposium. Are there other avenues you're using to communicate to advisors? I'm just thinking of advisors who want to learn more about what you've perfected over all these years. How do they gain more access to that, or is this the primary path?
Well, there was actually another way. Prior to creating the Elite Wealth Advisor Symposium, we had also created, it's called the Ultimate Advisor Coaching Platform. And what that is all about is more advisors that maybe haven't grown to the level that they would like to, but want to know, what's some of the secret sauce, if you will, that could be helpful from creating the proper culture and hiring and marketing and things like that. So it would be either newer advisors or just advisors that maybe have hit a plateau and want to kind of move beyond. Whereas the Elite Wealth Advisor Symposium, it's probably, $1 billion plus firms. So kind of the upper edge of the financial advisor realm.
So then with the Elite Advisor Coaching Platform, is that an in-person? How does that sort of work logistically, or where do people learn more about that?
Yeah, well, you can go to Ultimate Advisor Coaching, and that we have a website for that. We've made some modifications over the years as we try to find out, well, how can we be most helpful? So we've gone from masterminds to, we're in person to today. What we do is we have in person via Zoom, where we do kind of weekly call-ins, depending on what you're trying to do. And then we also have created video stacks of educational things that you can plug into, depending on what interest you have. So if you're looking for something that you can refer back to for all sorts of different things, we also have, kind of learn on your own platforms.
Well, so Bryan, as you're working with advisors, whether it's in the Elite Wealth Advisor Symposium or the Ultimate Advisor Coaching Platform, what are some of the consistent, I don't want to say mistakes, but what are the consistent breakthroughs that you see people make when they say, hey, or when you teach them, hey, this is how I'm doing this in my practice? What are the things that people really grab a hold of and see real change in their practice?
I guess a couple things. One is people tend not to hire fast enough. So
Interesting.
they try to do everything themselves. And so once they kind of get that figured out, that if I can spend all of my time doing what I'm really good at and do what I really love and hire somebody that likes to do all the stuff that I hate to do, kind of the light bulb goes on, and I'm sure you could agree when you first got started, you did everything from opening the mail to filling out applications, and 90% of that stuff we didn't like, and
Yeah.
then the faster you figured out just doing what you're really good at and letting others who have other expertise do it is really a secret. The other thing is learning to take action. So just doing something 80%, even if it isn't perfect. So I think
Sure.
what happens is people say, well, this isn't perfect. Well, it's not perfect in their mind, but the client doesn't know what it's supposed to look like. So just getting it out there and doing something is so helpful. You're moving something forward. And I think people wait too long. I got to learn this, or I got to get this first. And, they should themselves to death.
Yeah, boy, that is an easy thing to fall into, and I think, especially by the time someone like yourself, Brian, gets to the point of being sort of for lack of a better term, a leader in the industry, you've already had all these decades to perfect this. So if I went into your practice, if I'm a new advisor, even I mean, I've been in the industry 20 years. If I went into your practice, I would be blown away, and it'd be very easy to get intimidated. Wow, Brian's team is so efficient. He's got multiple advisors, and he's got all these assets, and everything's dialed in. But it certainly didn't start that way, right? 43 years ago when you started, it wasn't like it looks today.
No, no, and that's the key. I think it's all about a lifetime of building something, and you're never going to get there tomorrow. But if you can make a little bit of progress, and Dan Sullivan has got a principle, talking about gap versus gain. And I think one of the other things that happens to advisors is they always kind of get disappointed in themselves that I had this goal and I didn't hit it. And instead of looking at, something in the horizon which you may never get to, take a look at where you started and what you've accomplished, and you'd be amazed at how much progress you've made. And that's all positive, whereas not accomplishing something is negative. So, the other thing is doing anything you can to keep a positive mindset. Mindset's probably one of the biggest thing. The latest book we wrote is kind of on the intersection of mindset and money. But being around people that can keep you motivated, and reading things that keep you motivated. It's a tough industry, especially when you're getting started, and a lot of people say no, and you have a lot of things that go against you. So you just need something that kind of keeps you going.
Yeah, the gap and the gain is a great principle. In fact, I was at one of my personal masterminds the other day, and we were talking about hitting milestones. And so we are saying, hey, how many of you hit your goals? And we'd hit a lot of goals. And so Micah, my business partner, says, well, how many of us stopped to celebrate those goals?
Yeah.
And it was crickets, right? And these are all very high achievers. They have amazing practices. They're doing great things. But yeah, they hit these milestones that most people view as impossible, and then didn't even pause, myself included, for a second. It was immediately, all right, what's the next gap, not celebrating the gain?
Yeah, that's really easy to do, and that would be a really great lesson to learn. Is pat yourself in the back, and when you set a goal, maybe set a reward that you're going to do at the same time, so that you feel like you really did accomplish something, instead of, okay, here's the next big challenge, and not recognizing all your hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, we could do an entire episode on that. Brian, tell us a little bit about your practice today. I guess if I were a professional podcaster, we would have led with your hero's journey and then got into your program, but I always go wherever I'm curious. Tell us about how your practice looks today.
Yeah, no, it's we're in a little town in Minnesota, a little town of 10,000, southern Minnesota,
Okay.
and we've been very fortunate to have acquired an amazing amount of clients. So we do work with a lot of clients, 1,100 households. Um, I have 5 advisors, 16 team members. We work in 33 different states around the country. So we've got a pretty diverse practice. Our practice is pretty much 100% based on a unique process I created years ago called the Dream Architect. So we go through our unique process with our clients, and it's all about trying to help them live, the retirement of their dreams is really what it's all about.
Okay, I got several questions here. So a town of 10,000. So either your clients are obviously spread well outside of town, or every 10th person is a client of yours. Is your team located all there? So you have 21 people on your team, 5 advisors, 16 support. Are they all local, or are they spread all over the country? How does that look?
For the most part, they're all local in my office. I do have another office 30 miles away, and it's not used every day. It's actually in a bank. And so we have some clients over there. There's one of my advisors lives there. So it's kind of convenient for an area she's trying to develop. But yeah, we've just found it works really good so far that all of our staff is right in one place.
I'm just drawn again to your being in a small town, and I'd be curious to get to what some of your kind of head trash was early in your career. But I think it's easy. Sometimes I meet advisors and they say, well, Matthew, I could have a practice like yours if I lived in some booming metropolitan area. And to which I would say, go look at the demographics of where my office is located. It's not a booming metropolitan area, but it's not a town of 10,000 people. So how did you build this impressive practice from such a small town? And what would you say to other advisors that are also in very small towns?
Yeah, I probably look at it differently than most. I would tell you being in a small town is actually an advantage. And the reason I say that is if you're really conscious of what you do and what you say, good news travels fast, but also
Sure.
bad news travels fast. So if you always go above and beyond and deliver value and are known for, doing what you say and all of those little principles, people gravitate towards you, and then the referrals start coming in. So, a lot of the clients we have in 33 states came from clients that moved, but I've also got clients that were referred out of town that I've never met, but one of my clients referred them and said, you've got to do business with us. So it's just always keeping in mind, no matter what the situation is, just do what's in the best interest of the client, even if there's nothing in it for you, because it will always come back tenfold. It might not be tomorrow, but at some point. And if you play the long game, that's what it's all about.
Boy, a lot of things to pull out there. I love that emphasis on playing the long game, right? So if we looked and said, hey, boy, is this going to generate more revenue today or tomorrow or next week? The answer is probably no. But as you've obviously demonstrated, boy, the long game. Tell us a little bit about finding your team. So if you've got this impressive team, you didn't draw from a big candidate pool unless you've been able to get people to relocate.
Yeah. Well, let me just tell you, it's been a work in progress, to say
I
the
bet.
least. And the first thing is where it started getting better is I got out of that. So I had some team members that, excelled at that. And we have a really strict criteria today. And I'm not 100% sure exactly what we all do, but we are very much, quick to fire, slow to hire, and we wait for the right person. We'd rather get, an A++ person and pay him twice as much than just a good one,
Yeah.
because we found a great employee probably does 3 times what a good employee does, and it's just been kind of a work in progress. But I would thank my team for creating that, process that we use today. But we've been very lucky that how we've gotten a lot of our most recent ones is they used to live in Fairmont, moved someplace, got married, started having children. And one of the advantages of living where I live is it's got a great school system and it's really, really safe and a great place to raise kids. So a lot of people that moved away now move back for that particular purpose. And, fortunately, we've developed a good reputation over the years, and we do pretty much an extensive broadcast when we're hiring people. And we do ask our team members also, do they know any good people like themselves? And so, names kind of flutter in from time to time. And if we get an exceptional one, we will actually hire them before we need them, because it is really difficult to get a good one.
Yeah. Boy, there's so many things. I love talking to you, Brian. This is really fun. I noticed that several times you said your team, and you gave gratitude to your team. You acknowledged your team. You never said my employees, or you said, hey, the other people that work here. And I want to pull that up because I when I meet people who say, well, I have these employees, or I have these people that work for me, it always makes me cringe. And so to hear you say, hey, this is my team, and really I couldn't do it. In fact, if I'm being honest, I'm not really sure what everybody does, but they just do it, and it's magical. Tell us a little bit more about that. And again, I'm not just trying to flatter you, Brian. I'm just impressed with what you're doing.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. No, I'm really good at a couple of things. But I just hire for all my deficiencies, which, is actually quite a few. But, and I don't know, we try to create a like a family atmosphere, if you will, but, there's obviously accountability. We all, celebrate the wins. We all do it together. But I really, like I said before, I really can't take a lot of the credit for how the team's developed. I sit in on some of the meetings, but we have these ongoing, skill building and meetings where we're trying to do team development.
Yeah.
And it's been fun. I personally, there's a couple people in the office that I like to mentor that, want to grow, specifically advisors. So that's been fun. But one of the things that I think kind of goes along with the dream architect mentality that we've developed is we've created a dream board for each of our team members. And so one of the things that we desire is to help them accomplish what's important and what's in their dreams, because if we can help them do it, they're going to be more likely to want to help our clients do it. And so that's kind of fun. We've got a big picture board, and they all have a couple of pictures of things that they'd like to accomplish. And then, we work on it as a leadership team. What are we doing to help each member of the team get there?
I love that. What a fun way to be engaged, right? And it's an interesting thing, and I love your thoughts. Sometimes people, business owners, right, they get sidetracked. They think, well, I don't have time for this team dreams or team dream boards, and I don't have these things. But I've always found, and it sounds like it's the case for you as well, Brian, the more energy I invest in my team, one, it just makes me feel better as a person, right? These are people that I care about, but the results always come back to me tenfold or 100-fold.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there's just an absolute direct correlation. The better you help your team, the better they help the clients. And so it's, I think anything you can do to take it to another level is definitely going to be helpful.
Brian, talk to us a little bit, if you will. I know we're jumping all over the place, but as you were talking about being in a small town, right, you didn't complain at all about, boy, I'm in this small town and there's these hiring difficulties. You mentioned that hiring is always a challenge, which it is, but you mentioned all of the strengths and the benefits of being in your small town. How did you develop that abundance mindset, and how do you recommend other advisors develop that the same, right? So there was no victim mentality in that talk. It was all abundance mentality.
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the things that I would say, if how I created that, is I've been a lifetime learner. And so I've been part of something or multiple things at once for as many years as I can remember. And I think when you can be around people that think differently or think with abundance mentality, and that's what a lot of these masterminds that you and I go to,
Yeah.
that's all of those people's, aura, if you will. And you spend a couple of days with them, and you can't help but absorb and, get excited about thinking bigger and abundance and, just looking at life differently. And then while you're back at the office where you may not have that exposure, you just need to learn to do things daily, which I do in the mornings, reading things that keep that in the back of your mind, or journaling, or a combination of all of those things, watching, listening to, the Perfect RIA podcast or whatever the case may be. You just need to kind of pump your brain with the thoughts that you want to accomplish. Because I have just found whatever you think about, all of a sudden those answers just kind of pop up and present themselves. And if you're receptive and then you're willing to take action, amazing things happen. But you just got to get your mind thinking in that direction, because if you're thinking negative things, boy, there will be a lot of things that show up that are negative.
Yeah, boy, those are great points. And it makes me think of the Genius Network event that you and I were at together just a few weeks ago. And then but for the format, for those who have never been, right, there's presentations throughout the day. And the presentations are really quality speakers. But what I found for myself, and this is what made me think of it, Bryan, is it puts me in that space, right?
Yeah.
These are all speakers that are top performers in their industry. And it gets me in that abundance mindset that, all right, what can I solve? And then I run into you and I run into other people, and we're all jamming on how do we get to 10x where we're at right now. Versus, I think, as you pointed out, if I'm dwelling on, hey, I'm stuck with this, whatever this is, it seems to be all you see.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And at least for me, that's what I do, and it seems to work. And I would think it could really work for anybody.
You mentioned reading in the morning. Any favorite books that come to mind, Bryan? Other ones you're working on right now, or just in general books that have really helped you along the way?
Yeah, boy, it'd be a little scary. Well, you were a genius, so you probably walked away with 32 books like I did. So I've got that stack. It kind of depends. I think one of the things that I need to get better at is, instead of reading 52 books a year, maybe read one book 52 times. Especially if you found one that's really impactful. What you will find if you read that one book again and again, there'll be things that you missed. And so if I was going to make one suggestion, it would be, find a book that really had an impact on you and read it multiple times. Now, one book like that is Who Not How by Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Yep.
And just an exceptional book. And literally that one book changed my thought process on so many things. We used to, in the office, think we could do anything. And literally, other than our expertise, now we go find the utmost expert in it, plug into them, collaborate with them. You get it done so much faster. It's actually much less expensive, even though you might have to pay them a big fee, and it gets done right. So your team's not frustrated. You get it working sooner. Everybody's happy.
Oh, yeah. Boy, there's so many examples of that, where finding that who. One little thing that comes to mind as you were mentioning that is years ago, we outsourced our IT. So we have they call them managed service providers. I'm sure you have something similar.
Yep.
Whereas before it was, if there was a problem with the computer, you would ask me. And then I really didn't know what I was doing, but hey, I didn't want to pay the $2,000 a month or whatever it is. Or Excel. Like, I've got some decent Excel skills, but I can't find table references and that kind of stuff. So we went on Upworks. We found a guy who's really great at Excel. And now every time we want Excel to do something, we just call the spreadsheet at him. We call him up, and he does it. So I love that point.
Yeah, and it's amazing. We actually have even hired some people from the Philippines that are exceptional in lots of different skills, and it's amazing what they will work for. You almost feel guilty, but it's like really high wages for them, but relatively speaking. So on different projects, we've got certain people, recently they have been from the Philippines. They could be from anywhere, but that's another resource that if people haven't looked into, it's really helpful.
Yeah, in fact, for the Perfect RIA, our entire marketing team is all based in North Macedonia. And so we have now, we've got Maya and Daniela and Darko and Xander and now Emil. And so we have a 5-person team over there in North Macedonia, and they do this amazing work for us.
Wow.
And what's great is they're in opposite time zones as we are. And so we can get up in the morning and all this great work is done, and they're just getting done for the day. So yeah, there's a lot of options in the world these days.
Yeah, it's kind of sky's the limit if you really start looking into things. That's for sure.
I love it. Well, Bryan, we could chat all day. In fact, I'd love to do a few more of these episodes, but what are some action items that you would recommend to listeners? What are things that you'd say, boy, if you just do a couple of things, these would be those things?
Well, I think, the one thing would be, when you go to a meeting, bring the person that will help you implement it along with you. I know it costs an extra fee to bring them, and they're away from their office for a day or two. But just think about the magnitude. If you could get one or two things accomplished from each meeting that you had, what impact would that have on your business? It's gonna be amazing. So that would be one. And then two, look around and figure out who are the five people that you're hanging out with the most. And if they're not enhancing and making your life better and encouraging you and motivating you, and you mentioned abundance mentality, if they don't have that, you may want to look at maybe upgrading a couple of people, because you're going to react and you're going to end up replicating a lot of those people. And if what they've accomplished isn't what you want to accomplish, I would just say spend more time with people that have bigger ambitions.
Yeah, I love that. Something that one of my coaches had me do related to that is I always ask after I get done with an interaction with somebody, I think, all right, am I more excited than I was before I met them, before I hung out with them? And if I'm more excited about whatever it is, it could be mountain biking, it could be practice management. If I'm more excited, then I need to work on that relationship. And if I'm less excited, then I really need to look and say, to your point, Brian, is that one of the five people I want to be spending my time with?
Yeah, I think that's well said, and just an easy example to use for a reference piece. Yeah.
Really is. Well, Brian, thank you so much for your time today. Again, for all of our listeners, be sure to check out the Ultimate Advisor Coaching Platform. Be sure to check out the Elite Wealth Advisor Symposium. Look up Brian. I already pulled his ADV because you know how I am. I pull everyone's ADV. Brian has built an incredible practice. And whenever I can learn from people with incredible practices, I always want to go out of my way for doing that. So, Brian, thank you so much for your time. Any parting thoughts before we go?
No, I just really appreciate everything you're doing to try and make advisors better. And I think it's an exceptional podcast and great information. So keep up the good work.
Awesome, Brian. Well, thank you so much. And for all our listeners, until next time, happy planning.